Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from HPWL.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Sometimes before I join a coach's coaching group, I kind of would like to know the culture of what's going on inside the program to know if it's actually the right fit for me. So I thought I would do a little bit different of a podcast episode tonight, a different type of podcast episode where I want to actually debrief a little bit of our Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss Fastrack to Freedom client group call tonight without obviously sharing any names and preserving anyone and everyone's confidentiality. Very important to me. And I hope that it's enlightening. I'm also going to share with you different things that I coach people on during this call tonight. Every single coaching call is different. And I love that about the coaching calls. Yeah, so we're just going to get right into it. So buckle up and here we go. So one of the things that I love the most about group coaching is that there is always magic as far as who comes together in the group at the same time. I really trust that different people's paths cross at different times. And I think it's so awesome that even virtually we can have this occur. And I know this from personal experience when I have joined any and all of the group coaching programs that I've been in. There have been mainstay friends, connections, people I've networked with that have led me to that next place or that next coach or that new event or that new location. There is a gal who I met through a group coaching program that was out in LA. At the time I was living in Australia and then in India and was doing the digital nomad thing around the world. And she and I met anyway, and it's been probably 5 years now, maybe 6. And she's now married. She wasn't when I first met her. We were kind of together as we were working through relationship things, and actually met up with she and her husband in Rome when I was there with my boyfriend in September. And we've done retreats together. We have gone to other coaching events together, other things. We used to speak on the phone every single day and do some of the inner work that I now teach my clients as I was healing my inner self to become who I am today. So, and she's now actually training to be a therapist. So anyway, I could go on and on. There's another gal, I'm still connected with her as well, as from that same initial coaching group. She and I actually met up in Thailand. We both happened to be there at the same time. And anyway, our paths continue to cross. So all of that to say, there currently in the group are 2 ladies who are in their 30s, and they are moms of young children. And so just their synchronicity of being able to talk about the stressors of being a mother of young children and having their husbands and all of that kind of stuff is so healing for them. And I'll get into some of the specifics of what I coach on, but just want to really highlight the, again, synchronicities of trusting who's ever in the program at the same time and how those paths are destined to be there. I just really, truly believe that. The other thing on a less magic note is that you can kind of trust when you're considering a group coaching program that if you like the energy of the coach, then naturally whoever is also going to be attracted to that program is going to have similar values, similar energy. So I can always kind of trust that okay, well, if it's more people that are magnified or, attracted to her, then those are probably people that I would really connect with and be happy to have conversations with that are similar to what I hear this coach doing. So there's that. Now, one of the young moms who's in the program had shared how she is the mother of a 6-year-old daughter who is blind and, has special needs. And while the other young mom didn't have that, another woman in the program, a little bit older, spoke up that she also is a mom of a son with special needs. He's older, in his 30s, but they got to share the fact that, they were going to be having children living with them for the rest of their lives and have that support there. It's like, who knew that that was going to occur? In addition to that, there has been a lot as far as like grief and loss and death in this current group. The one woman who had the son with the special needs, her husband passed away a couple years ago of cancer. And then we just had another woman in the program who experienced death in a major and horrific way in her family. And, so everybody being able to kind of support each other with those types of things. And just know that they're not alone is just huge. There's a woman in the program who she is also a nurse, and she spoke up and she was like, I just feel like I'm in this group for something different. And she was like, I just feel called to say, to those young moms of like, it's gonna get better. You're gonna get through this. And like, once the kids get through college, you and your husband are gonna be like, oh my God, we did this. And I'm sure that just felt so helpful to be validated and to know that this too shall pass of what they're experiencing. And then she also talked about faith and how, with everything that everyone is so, in dealing with, having some sort of background of faith is so vital. And that kind of brought up a conversation. And you might be asking, like, how does this conversation have to do with permanent weight loss? Well, it all does. You can't take your personal life out of your food freedom, because oftentimes the reason that we snap back into diet mentality over and over again and have bad body image issues and this type of thing and all the mental obsession is because it's emotional. And it's usually actually triggered by other emotional things going on in the background that we just may not be fully present to. Sometimes we are, but usually there's even a deeper dive into it. And so I love that she brought up the faith component, because another gal in the program tonight was talking about how, actually the young gal of the child with special needs, of how she was scared to actually allow herself to really feel all of her feelings in this, bigger release type of way that she had been carrying, because she was carrying so much anger and her upset, at everything. The other woman whose husband passed away, she was like, I was angry at the medical system, angry at God, angry at my husband for leaving me, like normal emotions that can go through us. And this is, where it's at, is like, normally we're numbing these things out with food or alcohol, but it's like these women are brave enough and courageous enough to actually share and have these conversations that actually allow the emotional release valve to be released, and to have cravings go down, and to feel safe in general with feeling emotions. So this girl was saying she was just terrified to do that, because she had this fear, and I see this all the time, that if I actually allow myself to touch on some of these really deep, dark fears and thoughts and anger, that I won't be able to show up for my family anymore. I have too much to do. I don't have time for that. And totally valid, right? Especially as a mom, and then add in the special needs. It's like, of course, anybody would feel like that. And, part of that fear was also the unknown of what was on the other side of that. And that brought back in the conversation of faith, of being like, well, what is your belief system? And she was like, prior to my having my daughter, I was Christian and had these beliefs going on. But now, since this happened, I pretty much, it's just a very challenging relationship with faith to have, and I totally get that. Something that I shared on a little bit personal note, our family dog passed away last week. That's not a family member, and I won't compare to anybody else's grief. Grief is grief. It was very tragic and sad. And what I noticed as I was riding the emotional wave of the grief, and I'm sure it'll still come through me as I go, was that when I actually allowed myself to fully feel and say out loud and think all of the bad, negative, like over the top thoughts that I was thinking in relationship to that, that's when I was able to move past it. So, for example, I called my sisters after one of my allowances of myself to really go there with my anger and sadness and fear and guilt and shame around the grief of the dog passing. And what I saw in talking to them was some of them were still holding on to anger and resentment, fear, right, about just like the whole scenario. And I recognized that what they were currently hanging on to was what I was hanging on to that was holding me back energetically prior to my allowing myself to be like very dramatic with my allowance of emotions. And that for me is not normal. Some people are very hard on their sleeve and like crying like that is like totally normal. It just kind of depends on our makeup. But for others of us, the stuffing down is more normal. So I have now allowed myself and over time created a safety with myself and others to allow feelings to come out. And what I was sharing with my clients tonight is so normal that emotions and major negative emotions will move through us as human beings. That's part of our journey. We look at babies and sometimes they have major negative emotions moving through them. They kick and scream and yell and go wild. And then the next second they can be laughing. And the same emotions still move through us as adults the same way. And as we get older, we learn that it's inappropriate to show major negative emotions out loud, which of course we want to not, right? It makes sense to a degree. We're not going to go to work and have a hysterical breakdown. Not that there'd be anything wrong with it per se, but most likely we've learned that that doesn't work. But it doesn't change the fact that we still have that energy ball hanging out with us and we need to do something with it. So what happens? Well, we learn that if we have a glass of wine or two or a bottle, that also releases the tantrum or at least puts a band-aid on the tantrum. And so that's where these other habits come in, and then we start using food and alcohol, etc., as ways to numb out on these major negative emotions. So the invitation, as people are in the program, is to actually allow yourself to feel these emotions all the way through. And for some of my clients, I know they're like, I already feel crappy a lot of time. Don't make me feel anymore. But it's like, consider you have not felt the emotions all the way, like at the bottom of it. Because as soon as you get to the bottom of whatever that is, then there is like spaciousness, there is relief, etc. So one of my clients who's working through the program, she was saying different things, but was mentioned about getting very frustrated and angry and this type of thing. So I was like, I'm curious about this angry part of you. So she was one of the moms of the younger children. And she's like, so for example, I got angry and so I took myself outside and had my hands in my head and, took some breaths and said like, okay, like go back in there. It's okay. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. But for better results, if we actually go all the way to the bottom of that emotion and like how she's actually feeling in a way she can do it, we're going to get better results. So for example, you can actually write down all of the nasty, all the way down at the bottom thoughts that you're thinking. So oftentimes it's like, oh no, I don't want to think badly about anybody or anything, or oh, I'll be a bad mom or bad daughter if I say any of those things. But it's actually cathartic to actually say them because that's what's there anyway. So it's when you're frustrated, it's not abnormal to say, I hate being a mom. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be married anymore. Like, those are just like worst case scenario thoughts that naturally kind of come out of major negative emotions. So, again, if we're allowed, if we give ourselves a safe place to actually acknowledge, see it, feel it, then we can release it. And it's, you know, it's in service of those we love. Because the truth is, if we're stuffing it down or we're not all the way allowing ourselves to embrace the fact that we're thinking whatever we're thinking, that is going to affect our relationships, right? With our other people in our lives. Yeah, you'll see it mirrored all the time where like the argument that you're actually having with your internal self because of major negative emotions that are stuck in the background, it'll directly mirror like the argument, that's happening on the inside and with the other person and whatever. So if we release it with ourselves first, we get to be more grounded and show up as a better version of ourselves to be able to just better handle a situation and not let the emotions and the thoughts that come with those emotions get in the way. I had an awesome question asked to me from a client today about how can she tell the difference between reality? So, like, what thoughts are actually her and what thoughts are not? And the example that I gave was how, some days I'll get ready for the day and I'll be looking in the mirror and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I look awesome today. I feel really confident and I'm going out there. And then someone might take a photograph of me and I look at it and I'm like, that is not the way I thought I looked. And so she stopped me and she's like, so right there, like, how do you, like, what are you thinking about right there? Like, how do you know which one is real? Like, was it real that you looked good in the mirror in the morning, or is it real that the photograph was taken, or is it real of what someone else says you look like? And it's like, I don't know what's real. And that seemed to be like the breakthrough moment. Like, I don't know, right? We're talking about like how our brains receive information. And it's like, I don't know if my eyes, what version my eyes are seeing, whether it's through a camera, through somebody else's experience, or through my own in the mirror, or maybe my own as I'm actually looking down at my body. Like, I do not know which one is most real. And I do not know how someone else's eyes are seeing my body or whatever. It's just like, so therefore, let's not get too emotionally attached or, upset by those things. It's valid that you do get upset. It's normal, right? When you're in diet mentality. I've been there before. I remember at my sister's wedding a long time ago, I thought I looked good, and then I saw a picture of myself, and then I felt like for a long time during that wedding, myself kind of in a downward spiral of like, I look bad, I look terrible, I look fat, I look this, I look that, and it really like affected my energy. So it's valid that you feel it, and this program is teaching you how to feel something different by teaching you how to change your thinking into something different. So, and the faster and faster you can get of retraining your brain to not just immediately go into buying into the belief that that negative thing you're thinking is true and release that major negative emotion, the more in control of your feelings you can be, the more in control of your next decisions can be and how you're taking care of yourself. Because the truth is, the only thing that we can control, which prior to doing a program like this, you may not be aware of in like a very visceral way, but the only thing that you can actually control is the way you feel. Okay, so I'm a neuro-linguistic programming trainer, so everything is like the science of how we perceive everything in the mind and how it creates the reality that we get and everything like this. And the mind can change, the neural pathways can change, right? In order, we got to think differently to get different results, all of that kind of stuff. So having that awareness is just like, okay, so everything's all made up. Okay, and so when I think a negative thought though, right? So if I get a picture in my mind and I see like myself and then I have all these internal labels of like fat, bad, wrong, ugly, etc., right? Then all of those negative thoughts create a negative feeling in my body. Yeah. And so then I feel not confident. I shrink down. I'm not social anymore. Okay. And a lot of my clients, when they come to me, that's where they're at, is they're not as social as they want to be. They're kind of scared to put themselves out there, blah, blah, blah. But then when you realize of like, oh, okay, I can actually change the thoughts that then change the way that I feel, which then has me feel more confident to go back out there. Like to know that you can control your inner state at any time after you learn all the emotional mastery, use the hypnosis, right? All the tools. That's when like life gets fun and interesting because it's just like it's all made up and I can create whatever kind of experience I want to create based on whatever. And if I don't know how to create it, then I'm going to find a coach who has created it and I'm going to learn from how they think to get those same thoughts that create the same experience and feelings in the body. So just a little awareness point there. What else from the call tonight was very interesting? The difference between diet mentality thoughts and food freedom thoughts. So one client was kind of like working on getting better at those two things. And the example that she gave was, so the other night I thought, hey, it would actually feel good to, like, I would love to have some chips. And then she said, actually, I don't really want to have chips. So that is an example of food freedom language. Okay, because she gave herself permission and actually felt like a desire to have chips, but then she ended up making an empowered choice that it actually wasn't something she actually wanted, so she said no. So that is food freedom thinking. Then she gave an example of how she she really wanted to have a piece of toast at bedtime. And rather than having the piece of toast, she chose to have cherries. And she was like, so I felt really good about that decision. And I said, well, what would have happened if you ate the piece of toast? And she was like, well, I know that it doesn't go well for me when I have carbs at bedtime. And I was like, what happens specifically when you have carbs at bedtime? And she was like, well, I get bloated and then I feel guilty and I feel shameful. And I was like, did any diet along the line tell you it was not good to have carbs at bedtime for weight loss? And she was just like, yeah, So it's like, so that is coming from diet mentality thinking. That is something that you learned. It's not something that you have chosen for yourself or experienced in real time. So she had a definition in her mind that eating fruit at bedtime was better than eating toast at bedtime. Now, what I shared was that when I was following that super strict eating program, they actually said that eating fruit at bedtime led to weight gain. And I said, so because of my programming, diet mentality thinking would be that toast was better than cherries at bedtime based on my experience. So since these are both based on what someone else has taught us based on science and weight loss, it's diet mentality thinking no matter what. Because the reason you are making that choice is because you're trying to lose weight, is because it's some kind of strategy. And then you have placed some kind of morality on that of being like, okay, well, and if I make the choice to have the cherries instead of the toast, that's a good and better decision. And therefore, I'm a good and better human. And therefore, I can be happy and proud. Okay. But then the reality is like, okay, but you still might not lose weight that way. And it's just all meaning. It's just all mental constructs. It's not actually your experience. So, but then to flip that around, food freedom thinking would be like, hey, I am feeling a little hungry before bedtime. What feels like it would feel good to me would be toast. You might be like, okay, well, I could have fruit, I could have this, but no, that's not going to do it for me. The toast is actually what feels like it's going to be right. You have the toast, and then that's the end of it. So how to get past the diet mentality thinking, though, is like you got to kind of face the fears. And this will be the last part that I share. So every single challenge and homework that there is in this program is specifically designed to support everyone in feeling more comfortable out of your comfort zone so that you can get feeling like yourself again, or maybe for the very first time. And so scaring yourself a little bit, doing something that feels completely not good is part of the journey. So with this client specifically, she was like I'm still not going to bring these certain foods into the house because I don't trust myself that I'm not going to eat them. That could seem smart, right? But that's also diet mentality thinking of like, just don't bring it in the house, because as soon as you bring it in the house, then that's when you're going to have a problem. And while it's totally valid to make that empowered choice for yourself to not bring certain foods into the house, there's a bigger transformation when you face the fear and actually bring it into the house. And maybe you do overeat it initially, but then it'll be such a rich breeding ground for learning. Right? Same way that if she had made the choice to eat the toast, okay, she felt a little bloated and then she might feel guilt and shame. Well, now we have something to work with. We're going to move through the guilt and the shame about eating toast at bedtime and learn something new. Right? If she overeats on food that's in the house that she brought in the house that she normally wouldn't, well, then she's probably going to feel guilt and shame and like a bad person. And I knew I shouldn't have done that, and start shaming herself if she overate any of the food that's there. Right? Versus really transforming that relationship with self, learning to be kind with yourself. I had another client in the call today as she's been kind of excavating her past. She really saw that her parenting growing up, there was a lot of criticism, and she actually had no experience of unconditional love, of compassion, of acceptance, etc. And so it is a new muscle to actually, and we could chalk that up to be, that might be like where it comes from. But the difference between having a growth mindset, which is like, I get better every single day, and as a human being, it's impossible not to make mistakes. We could not be humans if we do not make mistakes. That took me a long time to really kind of get. It's still new, like where it's actually like the page has turned for me there. But, just very black and white thinking. So I, for mistakes with food, got over that first. But then I found out there was mistakes with finances, mistakes with relationships. And those were like traumatic things that would come up for me as well. But anyway, all overall, it's like, as humans, mistakes are made. And when you live in a very, like if you had an upbringing where it was like love was somehow taken away from you, or no emotional availability or whatever, or they did not know how to support you with the growth mindset, well, then you're just gonna like internalize and shame it, right? That happened to me. And that's just the training that we got. So, but then I have a friend who, she's a teacher, and you can see how growth mindset is like how she has always been primed since she was a child, and probably what makes her such a great teacher, because it's just like she easily forgives herself. She easily learns from it. She easily puts a new action in place, and she easily learns and becomes better every day. Right? Her mantra is like 1% better every single day. And that's really a healthy, healthy, healthy way to be. And to get that, like, anybody who completely cuts you off or is super mean to you or something because you make a mistake, like, that is not healthy. And while their reaction is valid and deserves respect, and anyone can react in any way that they want to. I had a very wise coach say to me one time, like, do you actually want to be friends with anybody who reacts that harshly to you? And that was kind of weird for me. Because it was just like, I always took it so personally. As a nurse, I have a thought that we have like a mindset of being like, what's wrong with me? That we think there's something fundamentally wrong with us, because our brains are primed to be like problem diagnosis, problem diagnosis. So we're constantly trying to find out what our problem is. But I always say to my clients, the only thing wrong with you is that you believe that there's something wrong with you. And once we can actually get yourself to see that you are perfect, whole, and complete, right? And it's just about learning, again, how to release those major negative emotions, forgive yourself, and then replace it with a new, more empowering thought. Like, that's where the rubber really meets the road and amazing things can happen. So growth mentality versus black and white thinking. And dieting, 100% like strengthens that muscle of black and white thinking. So, yeah, and the more restrictive the diet that you ever follow, the worse it is. So, since I did a food addiction program where it literally taught you that, like, if you ate any sugar that was not like from a piece of fruit, that your brain was going to like basically just like send off all these signals and you were going to just be like eat sugar until the end of time and not be able to control yourself, which since the mind is so powerful, if you believe that that will happen, which is what reinforces that belief that there is something wrong with you and you are a food addict. That's what happened to me. But the truth was, there was times when I could eat things in moderation, but it wasn't until I actually started believing the thought I was a food addict where things got really bad. So, um, beliefs trump all, okay? Like your unconscious mind is extremely powerful. So, if you believe that you don't deserve to be forgiven, or that you're fat, or you're ugly, or you're not good enough, or you're not capable, or you can't lose weight, or you're not smart enough, or you're not pretty enough, or you're not attractive, or fill in the blank, if you have beliefs like that going on fundamentally, and sometimes you're totally aware of it, and sometimes it takes a little digging to be like, ooh, wow, I actually believe at my core that I'm a bad person. I actually believe that, fill in the blank. Um, every single human being has like one major limiting decision about themselves, and then you literally spend your whole life trying to work so hard to make sure no one ever finds out that belief, including yourself. But then naturally when things come in that should, like someone rejects you or someone comments on how you look or whatever, it's like then all of a sudden we have that major traumatic response, because to the unconscious mind, they're seeing that thing that you're trying not to see and trying to make sure no one else sees unconsciously is death to you. It literally feels like you will be like burned at the stake if that happens, which is why we just can like internally or externally just have major reactions. So, all that to say, like diet mentality, especially very, very restrictive diets, it really, really, really messes with your brain. If you followed Weight Watchers forever, if you had diet conscious family, if you Jenny Craig, like any of them, not anybody's fault. You learned what you learned. There's good things about these things as well, but they program your brain to be very hard on yourself, very perfectionistic, very black and white, and not just building that muscle of, again, become aware of what happened, say you made a mistake, own the impact of the mistake, fix it in some way, learn from it, move on, don't make the mistake again. Like, it sounds so trivial to say it out loud, but it's like it actually takes a lot of to like, but it is so beautiful to have that. Like I was just sharing, like I've really just kind of turned the page on that of like daily be like, oh wow, like how I forgive people so easily. Like, why would I not expect other people to also give me grace as well? And that is just like such a beautiful gift to have and to be able to give to yourself. And to then it, once you get that for yourself and you give that to yourself, then when other people react like they conditionally love you when you make a mistake, or they go wild, or they get really upset or angry or whatever, you just know that that's how they are with themselves when they make a mistake. Like they haven't mastered that like forgiveness. Now, I'm not talking about like toxic things or like people that really, sometimes you do need to set a very firm boundary, and you can actually be very just adamant of like that person is not good to be in my life. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the belief that for the most part, everybody is doing the best they can with what they have. And if you've never experienced certain things, you may not react the same way. You may not have the same response to people. So if you can just always kind of take a, you know, back up a step and just say, okay, not personal. They're just doing the best that they can. And that didn't feel good to me, but it's not really about me, you know? Anyway, it just basically allows you to put an invincibility cloak where you're not caring what people think about you anymore. You're not just concerned about if people are judging you or not. It's just like the more you learn about yourself and your brain and how it works and how other people's brains and their thoughts and their feelings work, you just get to kind of see that it's like we're just in this virtual reality game. It's just like everybody just comes with their own background of their own thinking and patterning and whatever, where they're just these like machines. And it's just kind of hilarious. Like to me, it wasn't always hilarious, but now it's kind of hilarious. And it's like I can go anywhere, be around anyone. I'm not scared of any situation unless I should be scared of the situation. um, but it's because I've done the work to understand, again, my mind, my unconscious mind, but also communication, how to be with people, how to be with my emotions, how to be with my reactions. Um, and therefore, again, it's emotional mastery, it's communication mastery. NLP is in my background. I have one more spot left for my next NLP training in September. If you're interested in knowing more information, reach out to me in some way. I think info@hpwl.co will be a great email if you're interested in that. Um, and anyway, so that, like, if you love this and you want like an accelerated way to understand the mind that will better your, profession, sales, coaching, but then also personal development, like if you're just into this kind of stuff in general, and you also get trained in hypnosis, which is also the power of using language with the mind. And anyway, it's a very exciting 7-day training coming up in September. So if you're into that, let me know. And yeah, but anyway, it just like life gets fun. It gets really fun. But prior to that, it's like we walk around just kind of like hoping that nobody will say those things or hoping that. And it's like, so we try to stay skinny to protect ourselves from any of that judgment or the things that we're so afraid that people are going to say that are going to hurt us. But the truth is, like, people are probably going to say something that's going to hurt you no matter what body size you are, because people say not great things all the time. They may not mean to hurt your feelings, but it may happen. And so how do you communicate in those circumstances and also not internalize it or externalize it and destroy a relationship? It's like, it's all energy. And if you just master how to like be with energy, which emotion is energy, communication is energy, like food equals energy in the body, like everything's energy, and it's the coolest thing ever. I remember like one time just being in this, like I was very extremely tired and I was having a conversation. I could barely, but I was just like, I could feel, I didn't really compute what this person was saying to me. And I was aware of that. And I'd be like, okay, I don't really know what they said, but I can feel like energy in my body after they just said it. And I can feel that there's energy that wants to like come out of my mouth now to say back to them. And I like remember just like opening my mouth and just like the energy of the words came out. And it was just like, I wonder if that's going to work. Like, I wonder if they're actually going to understand what I said. And then the conversation kept going. And I was just like, it's just energy. So again, if we're just like learning how to smooth the edges of the energy, right, which is our emotional edges, you're smoothing those, our communication edges, you're smoothing those, and just making it just like this beautiful soft pillow to land on, both in your body and like how you're speaking with others and hopefully how others are speaking back to you. It's like, it's so freeing. It's so awesome. And then from there, like you can do anything with your entire life. So while, food is my favorite topic to like be the jumping off point for people, it really is like life mastery. And these conversations are real, they're vulnerable, they're rich, they're raw. And it's really just courageous women who are just out to have inner peace, have mental and emotional freedom in this area of their life, but they are quickly seeing that this is 100% affecting every single aspect of life. At work, had a client who said she did the best presentation she ever gave with her new business that she's running. I have people healing their relationships with their adult daughters after years of conflict. Better intimacy with husbands, all these different types of things, but new career inspiration, new social life, new adventures, new fun, new experiences. And it all gets to start with your choice to get healed in this area of your life with food, body, and weight. And if you just happen to be listening to this podcast and that is an area of your life you're not working on, NLP certification may be awesome for that. I also have NLP personal breakthrough sessions. So if you want like a full day immersive on Zoom with me, and we just pick one area of your life that you want to have a major personal breakthrough in, and we literally do all of the unconscious mind tools. I had a client who we did timeline therapy, which is part of it, and last week, and she's been working on her permanent weight loss journey. And prior to that, she just like was so triggered about stepping on the scale. Like she couldn't get herself to step on the scale. And she's like, after I did that session, like I stepped on the scale and I did not get triggered the way that I used to. Same thing with another client tonight. She was saying like things that used to really emotionally trigger me, like the weight going up or pair of pants too tight or whatever, like they're not gripping around my neck anymore. Like I can just, so yeah, the other woman, she just saw the scale and she was just like, okay, that number is more than I'd like it to be. So what would I like to do now? And as soon as you get to the place where you're removing the major negative emotions and you're removing all those limiting decisions that are actually like in the way, then you can actually just be with what's so. So it's just like, oh, interesting. The scale says this. I feel inspired to then do this. Versus the scale says this. This means I'm bad. I'm wrong. Screaming, crying, can't help myself. Da 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 da. Now, in order to get through that, right? We have to get through that, feel it, think differently, learn how to do it, which is what this program is designed for. But again, on the other side of that, where clients are walking out of their program saying like, I actually achieved this, is when they're like, I am in total acceptance of who I am, of the way my body is. I know that I'm doing the things that are in alignment with me. I know that I am taking care of myself in a way that feels right to me. And therefore, the weight may go off, may go down, the weight may go up, but I am not concerned about that anymore. I just want to continue to focus on being healthy and continue to have this healthy relationship with my inner self, because I know that the healthier I am on the inside, the healthier I'm going to be on the outside. So, all of that was because of timeline therapy that is done a lot in the NLP personal breakthrough session. So, if you know that you don't want to do the group thing and you would like to have that private all day intensive, same thing, info@hpwl.co for more information on that. And honestly, just take action. A couple weeks ago, I told you how I sold out on you. I'm not doing it anymore. I really firmly believe that you need to take action outside of your comfort zone to get what I'm talking about. If you want to live your best, happiest, freest, like most self-expressed, like adventurous, fun, bright, colorful, non-constrained, like life that is like really what you were meant to live, not what your family designed you to be or what you should do or shouldn't do or blah, blah, blah. But like, who are you? Like, what did you come here to do? What is your fullest expression, right? It's like, it is on the other side of this work, and it is a never ending journey. Your health and wellness journey is never ending. I have completely, obviously, fallen in love with doing this work, and I will always do this work because it's who I am. And nothing brings me more joy than to actually work with a client who's committed to also getting this stuff out of the way so they can actually live a life by design as well. So take that step. August is looking really good for me for booking any of those types of things. Obviously, we always have open enrollment for Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss program, the Fastrack to Freedom 8-week program. Details of that are on the website, hpwl.co/program. What else can I tell you about? Yeah. So, yeah. Good. So I can't wait to see you on my calendar. Yeah, so those private things. So the NLP certification, if you're interested in that, is in September. And then the NLP personal breakthrough sessions I schedule privately with you after we do a call, just talking about what your goals are and getting excited about what that is. So Love you so much. Take action. Don't put yourself off. You've been putting yourself off for way too long. Back burner is not where you belong. Everybody in your life does better when you do better. So say yes to you. Love you so much. Can't wait to work with you. If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.